How do we use Catholic culture as a source of catechesis?
Hi, my name is Diana McEldenton.
And I'm Nick Wagner.
And in this team initiation video, we want to break open what Catholic culture is and how catechists can use that to transmit the kerygma.
So let's begin with looking at why this is so important. Why is Catholic culture even a thing? And it's because Catholic culture does a couple of really important things. First of all, the reason that seekers come to us is not because everything is fine in their lives. Their lives are fragmented. Their lives are disjointed. They're looking for something to kind of put themselves back together or give themselves an anchor. And Catholic culture does exactly that. In the midst of a fragmented, disjointed world, when everything seems chaotic and upended, Catholic culture is like an anchor that helps guide the catechumens on the way of faith, the way of truth and beauty.
And that's true not just for seekers. It's true for all Christians. Christians don't have some kind of magic way of making life completely perfect. All of us live in a fragmented culture. That's one of the things that Pope Leo the 14th has been talking about, how we are living in this fragmented world with so many things pulling us apart. But our Catholic culture can be the primary way that we help bring out meaning for ourselves, for our seekers. And so as a community of Christians, we can help seekers see the truth of the world, not the lies that the world tries to impose upon us.
And that leads to the ultimate reason why Catholic culture is so important, because the truth is that human beings are built for transcendence. The whole point of the Incarnation is that Jesus became human as a way to say to us, to say to the world, that God created humanity in God's own image. And so humans are built to become and realize that we are part of that image of God. The directory for catechesis calls this transcendence. And so we're on a path to transcendence. We have to be open to transcendence. And Catholic culture helps us understand that we're transcendent.
And that transcendence, that culture is countercultural.
Yes.
It's not necessarily intuitive as humans, because all humans are imperfect, and we fall into different temptations and trappings that tell us otherwise. And so, but we have to be very careful here. Catholics aren't the sole arbiters of this transcendence. The world is filled with the transcendence and beauty of God. But in our Catholic culture, we can say as Catholics that here in this particular way of our culture of Catholicism, we can find that meaning, that beauty, that transcendence in a world that often tells us otherwise.
So what is Catholic culture? What do we mean when we talk about Catholic culture? Well, it's important to understand that Catholic culture is sort of born from within. It's born when we contemplate what Jesus is all about, what the gospel message is. And so when we start to become aware of the centrality of the gospel message, the centrality of Jesus Christ, what we think about Catholic culture begins to become visible and becomes real for us.
And Catholic culture isn't a separate culture outside of the human culture itself. Catholic culture is cultivated within our own human lives, our own human cultures. And so it doesn't replace our own culture. It works within cultures to reveal that true gospel message. It doesn't replace it. It collaborates with it. In a way, it enculturates our humanity. We can say that it is incarnational. Christian culture is incarnated within each particular culture itself.
So once Catholic culture begins to permeate or purify the values of human culture, we begin to see several gospel values or Jesus values that become evident. First of all, we see that Catholic culture teaches us or reveals to us the uniqueness of the human person.
Second, it shows us the dignity of life.
It also shows us that freedom is a central condition, a necessary condition of human life.
Catholic culture reveals the equality between women and men.
Catholic culture also gives us the ability to refuse evil and choose good. And that's really important because that's not always clear in human culture, the difference between those two.
One of the other things that are countercultural to our society's values is the importance of compassion and solidarity, putting ourselves into the needs of those around us and taking them on as our own needs.
And closely linked to that idea of solidarity is the significance of forgiveness and mercy. So if we're linked with each other, if we're putting ourselves in other people's shoes, then forgiveness and mercy become important values.
And as Nick said at the beginning, there is the Catholic culture of the necessity of being open to transcendence, to recognize not only the transcendent all around us, but within us and within one another.
So the Directory for Catechesis calls all of these values evangelical values. And what it means by that, I think, is that when we try to communicate the good news of all of this to people who are on the peripheries or seekers who come to us looking for something more solid, and we can say to them, you have dignity as a human person. You have complete freedom as a human person. You have equality as a woman. You have equality with men in the patriarchal world that we live in. You are built for transcendence. When we're able to say these things in, as Diana said, in enculturated ways, in ways that make sense to the person we're talking to, they begin to understand that Jesus is standing at their side every day, walking with them and healing them and bringing them to transcendence.
So as catechists, that's the job that we have. The directory gives us the what, the values, but we have to figure out how do we communicate that value to the person in front of us, to the seeker around, who is right in front of us. And how do we do that not just as what we might say the teacher, but as the companion, the one who is leading them into this culture. Culture is not an individual act. It needs a community to transmit it. And so we can say three different ways that all of these evangelical values are transmitted. First is the family being the cultural primary domestic church household that helps us know from our own beginnings of life how to live these these values.
The second way we help transmit these Christian values is through the Christian community itself. And there are lots of manifestations of Christian community. If you just think of your own parish, your parish bulletin, the stuff that's on your website, all the stuff going on in your parish is part of the Christian community. But the number one central thing that communicates community, communicates Christian culture, Christian values to our seekers is the Sunday liturgy. And I think we sort of say this out loud, but I'm not sure how deeply embedded it is in our practices and catechumenate and our catechumenate ministries, is that above and beyond all else, we need to make sure our seekers and our candidates are participating in the Sunday liturgy on a regular basis. We're pretty good about that, about insisting that they're present for our catechetical sessions. And I want to sort of reverse the emphasis on that and make sure that what we're emphasizing is the primary way to communicate Christian culture and Christian values is coming to the Sunday Eucharist and participating in the Christian community as we praise and worship God.
And then the last place, or the other primary place where we can transmit those Christian values is by our accompaniment, our one-on-one intimate relationships with those who are seeking Christ. As catechists, especially as catechists for the catechumenate, for those preparing to be baptized, being a companion and not just a top-down teacher-student relationship, but walking alongside, guiding them, revealing our own vulnerability and our own ways of living out this culture and the ways that we fail at revealing this culture is the formation, is the way that we help them recognize their own value, their own worth as a child of God.
So what would happen if we really began to use Catholic culture, all the values that are transmitted in Catholic culture, the methods of transmitting Catholic culture, if we began to truly do that in our formation processes in our parishes? What do you think would happen to ourselves? What would happen to our seekers? And what would happen to our parish community?
It would transform our relationships with one another. I think in our home, among our spouses, our friends, but most especially those in need, those we don't know, the visitor, the stranger, the person that society says has no value, has no worth.
I think it would also start to open us up to that idea of transcendence. Transcendence is not something that happens to us in that, primarily for most of us, in that story about St. Paul's conversion, where he's sort of knocked to the ground by the majesty of God all of a sudden. For most of us, it happens more gradually. We're open more gradually to the idea of the divine within us. And that happens because we start to use these methods of transmitting Catholic culture, and our seekers begin to see with new eyes and hear with new ears, bit by bit, day by day. They see the beauty all around them. They see God's presence in small, insignificant things. And that begins to say to them, I'm a person of worth. I'm a person of dignity. I'm a person who's built for transcendence.
And finally, I think the biggest impact that this will have for all of us, and not just our seekers, is that we'll finally recognize that the kerygma is not a thing. The kerygma is not a book. It's not a set of dogmas that we have to memorize and communicate. The kerygma is first and foremost the person of Jesus Christ. And beyond that, that Christ wants to be in a relationship with us through the Christian community. And so the kerygma is less about things and ideas, but the way we live with one another.
Well, that's all the time we have for this video. We hope that helps you understand a little more deeply how to use Catholic culture as a way of forming your catechumens and your candidates.
Come over to teaminitiation.com for even more resources to help you in your ministry. My name is Diana McAlintal.
And I'm Nick Wagner.
Thanks so much for watching.